Okay, so for today, our discussion would be about externalities. Yeah, chapter 33. This will be about externalities as well as market failure. Yeah, so we will see externalities. Later on, we will also try to connect externalities with government microeconomic interventions. So, what is externalities? Externalities, it refers to the costs or benefits that are external to a transaction. So they are third-party effects which are ignored by the price mechanism. Third party. So when there is any event, for example, if there is any action, yeah, action or event, action happening, what is the impact to third party? This is for externalities. In a free market, producers and consumers are self-interested agents, so they only consider the effect of purchasing a good on themselves. So they only think about the private cost and the private benefit. They only think about the private cost and private benefit. They don't think about the externalities. Okay, externalities is the impact to third party outside of the person who is consuming and producing. Outside of that, we have two types of externalities. One is called positive externality, and the other is called negative externalities. Positive externalities is where the side effects provide unexpected benefits to the third parties. So it provides extra benefit. It's called positive externality. We also have negative externality where the side effects have a negative or damaging impact on the third parties, which means that which means what? Which means that there will be additional costs to the third party. There will be additional costs to the third party. Externalities will always happen, but to prevent it, there could be some interventions such as taxes and subsidies. Also, other intervention that will be discussed separately in different chapter. Now we have the different types of costs. This is very important when it comes to multiple choice question based. So we need to know there are three types of costs. One is called private, one is called external, and the other one is called social. We have costs and we have benefit. Yeah, so there is cost and there's benefit. You must understand that cost is supplier and benefit is consumers. So you have to understand that cost is coming from supplier. Yeah, cost is supplier related to supply. Benefit is related to demand. So when you draw the curve, cost curve would be represented by supply. So when it's cost, it is related to supply curve. If it's benefit, it's related to demand. Okay. Benefit is related to demand, cost is related to supply. So we have private, we have external, and social. Private is what? It's experienced by the people directly involved in the decision to a particular action. So the direct consumer or the direct producer, the firms or the individuals that are taking the action, if they receive benefit, there will be private benefit. If they have to pay costs, that will be private costs. External costs, as I mentioned, it will be the consequence of the action taken by firms and individuals. There will be consequences that will be beneficial. There will be benefit. That could also be not beneficial. That will be called cost. It's not going to be external cost and external benefit are not paid for. It's not paid for, or it's not paid by the individual and by the firm, but it will be paid by the third party outside individual and firm. will be paying for that cost. And lastly, social cost and social benefit. We have the equation. Social cost is equal to private cost plus external cost. Social benefit is equal to private benefit plus external benefit. This has to be memorized for the equation because it will be for the multiple choice question based. Social benefits is when it will be happening, yeah, happening. Why? Usually the expectation is what? The expectation is that we want social benefits. We would like the social benefits to be equal to private benefits. We hope that the social benefit can be equal to private benefit. And this, if this happens, then there will be no externalities, right? No externalities. But in actuality, most of the time, the social benefit does not equal private benefit. The social benefit can be smaller or can be bigger, so it's not equal. And if it's not equal, it means that there is an inefficient allocation of resources. And that is when the market will fail, market failure. If the social benefit is bigger than private benefit, then there will be positive externalities. There will be positive externalities if the social benefit is bigger than social benefit is bigger than private benefit. So we have the term marginal social benefit is equal to marginal private benefit plus marginal external benefit. This is from the previous slide also. And also the second, marginal social cost is equal to marginal private cost plus marginal external cost. Now, when MSB is equal to MSC, this is where there is efficient allocation of resources. Efficient allocation of resources. This is where there will be efficient allocation of resources, where the marginal social benefit is equal to marginal social cost. If the marginal social benefit is equal to marginal social cost, that is where there will be efficient allocation of resources. But if it is not equal, then that is called inefficient allocation of resources or market failure. There will be externalities existing or happening. MSB is equal to MPB plus MEB. MSC is equal to MPC plus MEC. And this is the understanding. And the next one, we have the important one is what? We need to see that there are 4 types, yeah, of externalities. So first, we can divide into 2, yeah. We have production and we have consumption. First of all, we need to understand that the externality can be related to production, can also be related to consumption. It can be related to production. It can also be related to consumption. That's number 1. The first thing is that if it's related to production, it's called negative production and also positive production. If it's bad, it's called negative. If it's good, it's called positive. Okay. Also, same for consumption. We have, if it's going to lead to negative impact, then there will be negative consumption. If it's leading to positive impact, that's called positive consumption externalities. Okay, so we have 4, yeah. We can first categorize it into production externality and consumption externality. And for each production and consumption, we can divide it into negative and positive. For negative production externality, it's when the third parties are harmed by the production of a good or service, are harmed by the production of a good or service. So there are third parties harmed. Therefore, there is overproduction usually. In this case, there is overproduction. But if it is positive production externality, then there is a positive externality that is created by producers to the third party. There is a benefit that is brought or that is given by the producers to the third party. And under this situation, usually the production is lower than the socially optimum level. Under the situation, usually the production is lower than the socially optimum level. That is for production. And for consumption, we can also divide into two, negative consumption and also positive consumption. If it's negative consumption externalities, it's the consequences that when a consumers use a product, if a consumer use a product, for example, a consumer smokes, then it will cause harm to third parties who are not involved. They will become passive smokers. That can be an example. Consumption is above the optimum level, so there is an overconsumption of goods and service. So when it is called negative consumption externality, the consumption is more than the optimum level. So it creates or it results in something negative to the environment. On the other hand, positive consumption externality is when there are benefits. When there are benefits caused by the consumption of merit goods to the third party. If a person consumes vaccines, for example, then not only they will be healthier, but it will lead to positive impact to other people who are near that person, because it means that the vaccinated person is not going to spread virus. There is a lower chance of spreading virus, and that will give a positive consumption externality. Okay, we can see the graph in the following couple of slides. It will be the graph here, the graph. So how do we draw the graph? What is very important when you want to draw the graph is that you will need to draw the labels completely. So you can draw quantity here. You can draw quantity. And this is cost and benefits. Cost and benefits. So quantity, cost, and benefits. As I mentioned in the previous slide discussion, that you have to understand that demand curve is represented by MPB, yeah, MPB. Benefit is demand curve. Now we're looking at production externality. You see this slide title, we're looking at production externality. If it is production externality, you must know that the one or the curve, you must know that the curve that will shift is the supply curve. Is the supply curve. You must know that the curve that will shift is the supply curve. If it is a production, and remember, if the title is production, then what will shift is the supply curve. But if it is consumption, what is going to shift is the demand curve in the next slide. So the demand will be equivalent to MPB. It's also equivalent to MSB. MSB. And you can draw first the supply curve. The supply will be equal to MPC. Yeah, the supply will be equal to MPC. And for the first diagram, it means what? We can see that they are experiencing what we call as positive production externality. They are experiencing what is called as positive production externality. So it means that the MSC will be here. This will be the MSC. And we can label it first. This is the quantity. This is quantity. This is price. Okay. Q1 to be consistent, Q1, P1, and this is P. So in this situation, what we always want, you have to understand that with this kind of graph, what we always want is MSB should be equal to MSC. This one is called the target. This is called the target. Whatever happens, this will be the target that we want to achieve. So you can put a dot that this is the target. MSB and MSB and MSC meeting point. That will be the target. MSB and MSC meeting point. Before that, what we have to know is that we have an original point, which is MPB is equal to MPC. And that's the original point. The initial point is always this one, MPB equal MPC. Okay, you have to remember the rules. MPB, MPC, this is called initial point. Okay, MPB, MPC, initial point, MSB, MSC, that will be the target point. Okay, MPB, MPC initial, and MSB, MSC, that's the target point. So you have to understand that rule first. And then the second thing is that if it will be negative production externality, then it will shift to the left if it's negative. But if it is positive, it's going to shift to the right, because if it's positive production externality, so we are expecting them to produce more. We want them to produce more if it's positive production externality. That's why this will be the welfare gain, yeah. This triangle that will be shaded, it will be the welfare gain. So if it's positive, it's going to face to the right. This triangle will be facing right. Triangle will be facing right if it is positive production externality. You can see the second diagram here. I'm not going to draw the other diagram, but you can see that the triangle is facing left. The triangle is facing left because this is called negative production externality. So the supply is going to shift to the left. The supply curve is shifting to the left. You don't have to worry about drawing MEB or MEC. Yeah? This one, you don't have to worry about drawing it. You just have to focus on drawing the private and social benefit and cost curve. That will be enough, and show the triangle. That will be sufficient for this chapter. Okay, so always we have the point MPB is equal to MPC. Just to emphasize, this will be initial point, and the target point would be MSB, MSC. So this is initial, this is target. You have to understand that concept. This is for consumption externality. The same system is going to work. However, for consumption externality, the only one that I want to take note is the one that will shift is the demand curve. The one that will shift is the demand curve. So remember, if it's consumption, the one that is shifting is the demand curve. If it is consumption, the one that is shifting is the demand curve. But if it is production, the one that will be shifting is the supply curve. You can see here the example, the demand. There are two demand curves, right? There are two demand curves. As opposed to the previous slide, there are two supply curves. So consumption, demand shifting, production, supply shifting. That is to take note, and you can practice the drawing just like the AS level diagram. It's very, very easy. Okay, we have asymmetric information and moral hazard. We also have cost and benefit analysis. Asymmetric information and moral hazard. It refers to where one party has more or better information than another in a business transaction. So there are two types of asymmetric information. There are two types of asymmetric information. The number one is called adverse selection. It refers when the sellers have information, they have more information, when the sellers have more information that the buyer does not have, whether it's on the product quality or whether it's on the information of the product. So the seller has more information than the buyer. That's called adverse selection. For example, I sell used car, or this is second-hand car, yeah. Second-hand car, or I'm selling used cars. The thing is, as a seller, I know the car condition very, very well. I am totally aware of the car condition. But my buyer might not be having that same information because I can deceive them. I can say that this car is in good condition and so on. They might not be able to check properly. So in the end, they might be paying more price for a second-hand car that is sold by me. That's called adverse selection. Number two is moral hazard. It refers to the temptation to take risks when some other party is covering this risk. This usually happens when asking for a bank loan or asking for an insurance. For example, if you are purchasing an insurance for your car, if you purchase an insurance for your car, let's say, if you purchase insurance for your car, what is most likely to happen is that you would be less careful when driving, because you know that when something happens, the insurance company will cover. That's called moral hazard. Okay, you will be willing to take risk because you know that it will be covered. Or if you are asking for a bank loan, as the borrower, you would be willing to open a business, and even failing the business, you wouldn't care much because the money is not yours. It comes from the bank. So you will be willing to take risks when the other party is the one covering for the risk. Moral hazard. And then cost and benefit analysis. Before making a final decision, we need to consider both the cost and benefit involved. And there is a process that needs to be gone through when it comes to making this kind of decisions. So we have to follow several steps. For example, identify all the relevant costs and benefits, putting monetary value, like how much is the value of the costs and benefits that happens. You have to also forecast future costs and benefits. And finally, making decision after you consider the different costs and benefits, whether it's private, external, or social costs and benefits. Okay, so that will be for this topic discussion. This is about chapter 33 about externalities and market failure.